Joining me now on the phone line with NBC Sports Radio is Mark Malone here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Mark, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing terrific, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, one of the news items this week has been about Carson Wentz. And as a former quarterback, I would love your insight about, when you're dealing with a season like the Eagles are going through, it's not going very well. They're pretty much out of the playoff hunt, at least not mathematically, but mentally, a lot of people see this team as very disappointing. And now you have the news come out that the starting quarterback, the franchise quarterback, has an injury that could possibly hold him out for the rest of the season. How do guys handle that at this point in the season?
Well, I think the writing's on the wall in Philadelphia. We see this a lot. We attach the term Super Bowl hangover. There's a lot of difficult aspects of trying to repeat in the National Football League, especially as a Super Bowl champion. The fact that Carson Wentz is coming off the ACL and reports now indicate that this isn't the first time he's had a back problem this year. They're taking a closer look at it. I don't know if it's a partially herniated disc or what the issue might be. It could be the way he is throwing the football based on the fact that he's rehabbing from this ACL. There are a lot of questions out there still that haven't been answered. But if I'm Doug Peterson, again, although they haven't been mathematically eliminated, you're talking about risking your franchise quarterback for years to come to throw him out there for a chance. And listen, a chance is kind of all what we play for in the National Football League. But at the same point in time, you got Nick Foles, who was the Super Bowl MVP, and I know he didn't play particularly well early in the season this year. But if I'm Doug Peterson, I shut Wentz down. If a miracle happens, you find yourself into the postseason, fine, and maybe Wentz is ready to go at that point in time. But if I'm the organization, I'm Doug Peterson, I don't risk Carson Wentz screwing up his back, because those are weird injuries, and they could affect him for the rest of his career. So I just shut him down.
We know historically guys who are coming off of major injuries, we remember Tom Brady about a decade ago and others, they struggle a little bit that first year back. So do you think part of Wentz's year this year has been the fact that he is coming off an injury?
I think part of it, yeah. I mean, he's looked a little bit better here in the last several weeks as opposed to, what he looked like when he first came back. But listen, technology today and surgical procedures, rehabs, and things of that nature allow guys to get back on the field right away from these ACL reconstructions. But generally speaking, it's the year after that they start getting back to where they were before. So, I mean, I commend Carson and the medical staff there to get him ready and get it back on the football field. He's a team guy. He wants to play. He wants to win. But sometimes you can do damage to yourself wanting to get out on the football field. So I would expect him to be a lot more comfortable next year than he was this year, and probably a lot sharper than what we've seen so far.
The team the Eagles lost to last week, the Cowboys, digging a stranglehold on the NFC East. 5 straight wins. And Mark, during this 5-game winning streak, they have won the time of possession in each game. So we're seeing a great balanced offense with that defense in Dallas.
Yeah, everybody wants to scoop all the success that the Dallas Cowboys have had on Amari Cooper and how he's changed the offense. What he's allowed the Dallas Cowboys to do is to finally have a receiver that's not only a good route runner, but the guy does a great job of separating from the defender. And when you watch Dak Prescott over his career, he's not an anticipatory type of a quarterback. He's a see it, throw it kind of guy. And he's got to see some separation to get rid of that football, and he's got a strong enough arm to do that. They finally have that, but I think people are missing the point here. The point is that offense has been built around Ezekiel Elliott and running the football, and you mentioned the time of possession issue. The defense is playing better. That certainly helps, but the fact that you can run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and keep the chains moving, much like the overtime drive that they had last week, that kind of sets them apart. Now, the NFC East is the weakest division in football from my perspective, and although it looks like the Dallas Cowboys are going to win it, I wouldn't expect them to run through the postseason. I still think they've got some issues on both sides of the football, even though that defense is starting to play pretty well. So we'll see. I just think that despite Amari Cooper's success in the game he had last week, that offense has still got to run through Ezekiel Elliott.
We saw the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago shut down the Saints offense. So what do you see as the key to beating this hot Cowboys team?
Well, the key to beating the Cowboys team is trying to make them one-dimensional. I mean, you're not going to completely take Ezekiel Elliott out of the game. That's unlikely, but you can minimize him. And, when you play a football team like the Saints, who are capable of scoring a lot of points, for instance, they start to get in front of you, and it changes the dynamic of what you're doing offensively. Now you have to play from behind, and as a quarterback, you're forced to throw the football 35 times, maybe 40 times a game. That is not what Dak Prescott does really well. If you can run the ball, use some play action, kind of hammer away at the opposing defense and play from the lead as opposed from behind, you got a pretty good chance of winning. But a Saints team that's capable, for instance, of scoring a lot of points makes the Dallas Cowboys something they don't want to be, and then it gets really difficult to win football games.
One more for you, Mark, and I appreciate your time here on 97.3 ESPN. New York Giants, they've put together some wins lately. They fixed up the offensive line just a little bit. Eli Manning has looked better. What do you think the future is for Eli Manning in New York? Would you keep him around one more year? Do you think the Giants should move on? How do you feel from what you've seen from Eli and the Giants the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion on my show quite a bit. From my perspective, I move on. He is what he is. He's not going to get better. He'll be a little worse next year than he is this year. I get it. I've played the position in the NFL for a decade, and you got to have the right kind of people around you to have any kind of success. They're still trying to rebuild that roster to a great extent. The offensive line's gotten a little bit better, and you got Saquon Barkley and some pretty good wide receivers. Defensively, it's been a bit of an issue, but, listen, all you're doing is buying time if you are allowing Eli Manning to come back and play. Now, there are a lot of people out there that will say, well, listen, he's deserved that chance. Listen, you paid him for what he did, and he's won 2 Super Bowls. I get it. But other than that, he hasn't had a lot of success during his career. He had a couple of miraculous seasons, and I don't want to take anything away from him. But if I'm Dave Gettleman, the general manager there, and Pat Shurmur, you might as well pull the trigger on this thing now. It's going to take a while to get another quarterback in there, get him acclimated, and develop him. And if you're going to bring Eli Manning back next year, you're just moving that down the line a little bit. I'm not sure that that's fair to the rest of the players or to the fan base, to be honest.
Listen to Mark Malone on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network, which you can listen to at NBCSportsRadio.com and download the NBC Sports mobile app today. Mark, appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Enjoy yourself.